Happy Thursday, everybody. It's April 23rd, 2020. This is your grade 9 Reachback 6 answer video. We're going to start off with question number 1 from rational numbers. The question said, write these 4 rational numbers in descending order from largest to smallest. Now, we have 4 numbers here. I'm going to make them a little bit bigger here. We have 4 numbers, and in order for us to compare them, they all have to be in the same form. And if you choose fractions, they not only have to be the same form, but they have to have the same denominator. So therefore, the easiest way for us to examine and rank these numbers is to change them all to decimals. So the first one we're going to do here is 3/25. And the easiest way to change a fraction to a decimal is to take a calculator and to take the numerator and divide it by the denominator. And that's how we change it to a decimal. So therefore, it's 0.12. And because it's negative, it's going to be a negative 0.12 as a decimal. The second number is already a decimal, so we're going to keep it 0.1. The next number, we have 0.1 times 0.1. Now you can do it one of two ways. You could do it on pencil paper, or you can grab a calculator and say, what is a tenth? Oh, that's not a tenth. A tenth multiplied by a tenth. And the answer is 100th, right? So therefore, it's going to be 100th. Now, because it's a negative times a negative, or a negative 0.1 multiplied by a negative 0.1, which is negative 0.1 squared, it's going to be a positive. All right? And finally, we have the square root of 9/16. Remember, we said what fraction multiplied by itself to get 9/16. Since the numerator is a perfect square, it's going to be 3. And since the denominator is a perfect square, 16, it's going to be 4 times 4. And therefore, it's 3/4, which I think everybody knows. 3/4 as a decimal is 0.75. And then it says rank them in descending order. So our largest number is this, but we're not going to write it like that. We're going to write it like the square root of 9/16 is our first. Our next largest is going to be this one, which is the negative 0.1, or a tenth squared. Our next largest, now if we think about this as money, okay, and because it's negative, owing the least amount of money is going to be the greater number. So if you only owe 10 cents here and you owe 12 cents here, this is going to be greater because you owe less money. So therefore, a negative tenth is our next greatest, and our smallest number is negative 3/25. So those are the 4 numbers in order from largest to smallest. Our next question says, solve and show all the appropriate work. So I think this is the 4th time we've done these now, so we're getting probably pretty good at them. So the base is in brackets in the first power, and it says negative 10 in brackets cubed, which means negative 10 multiplied by itself 3 times. And negative 10 times negative 10 is 100. And 100 times negative 10 is negative 1,000. So in standard form, negative 10 cubed is negative 1,000. Plus, now this next one's a little tricky because this is not the same thing as this. Here, we're defining the base as negative 2 because it's in brackets and the exponent is outside. Here, we have a negative power in brackets, whether it's to separate it from an operational sign or what have you. Here, it's the reason why it's in brackets, it's to separate it from the addition sign. So what this really means is this is the same thing as this. And therefore, it's the opposite of 2 squared, which will be negative 4. The next one is 100 to the exponent of 0. Any base to an exponent of 0 has a standard form of 1. Minus 900 to the exponent of 1, and any base to an exponent of 1 is itself. So we're going to have minus 900. When I work this out, I have negative 1,004 plus 1 minus 900. Negative 1,003 minus 900. And if you have a hard time with this, you can switch it over like that. And your final answer is negative 1,903. Question 3 comes from our grade 8 on proportional reasoning. There are 3 ways you could do it. Probably the most common way is to take this $180 for 5 hours and figure out how much did you make for 1 hour. And that's pretty easy because it's a very elementary way to solve it. Divide both by 5. Take your calculator and say, what is 180 divided by 5? And the answer is 36. So if she made $180 for 5 hours of work, she would have made $36 an hour. And then if I wanted to figure out what it is for 10.5 hours, I could multiply by 10.5 and multiply by 10.5, and I would get 36 times 10.5 is $378. So that's the most common way. That's called determining the unit rate, because this would be a unit rate here. But an even more popular way to do it would be to take and multiply across the equal sign, the proportion. I'd say 5 times x will be 5x. Put your equal sign down and multiply these two. So 180 multiplied by 10.5 is 1,890. Isolate the variable now by dividing by 5, and x will equal 1,890 divided by 5, which is the same answer we had before, $378. Okay, so either way works, either finding a unit rate or alternatively creating an algebraic equation across the proportion. Question 4 asks you to subtract these two. Now remember, when you subtract them, you are, like if I was to give you negative, let's just write this in, a simple integer question. What you were told to do is you could keep the first integer as -3, change to addition, and use the opposite of the second, and you can get the answer to the subtraction question. Well, that idea also plays out when you do polynomials. You can change this to addition, but these have to become the opposites. All right, so instead of using positives, they're going to become negatives. And now when I gather like terms, those two are going to become negative 2x squared. This and this are going to make a zero pair, and then we left with a negative x. And this, and this are going to become negative 3. So your final answer is a trinomial negative 2x squared minus x minus 3. Your fifth question is division of a polynomial by a monomial. And here we need to utilize the idea of distributive property, where each term in the polynomial must be divided by 5x. If you wanted to rewrite it, you could write it as division of all 4 terms by 5x, and then simplify it. 10 divided by 5 is 2. X to the 5th divided by x, which of course is x to the 1, would be x to the exponent of 4. Negative 15 divided by 5 is negative 3. X cubed divided by x to the exponent of 1 is x squared. 20 divided by 5 is positive 4. X squared divided by x is just an x. And 5 squared, or any number divided by itself, is going to be a positive 1. So your final answer is the polynomial or 4-term expression, 2x to the exponent of 4 minus 3x squared plus 4x plus 1. And your final question comes from Chapter 6 on linear inequalities. Here we could do one of two things. We could either multiply both sides by a common multiple of the denominators, which is 20, or we could simply get rid of the constant by subtracting 9/10 from both sides. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get rid of the constant first, leaving me with 1/5 of x plus 1 is equal to, now here I need to change this mixed fraction to an improper fraction. Now that I have that, I'm going to keep the first fraction and change to the equivalent fraction of 18/20. When I subtract the numerators, I get 3, and keep the denominator, I get 20. Now that I'm here, I'm going to multiply both sides by 5. I get x plus 1 left. And over here, I'm going to multiply by 5 over 1. Now, I could multiply the numerators to get 15 and multiply the denominators to get 20. Or I could cross-reduce to get 4, or sorry, that's not 4, that's a 1. Oopsie daisy. I could cross-reduce, dividing both by 5 to get 1 over 4, in which case I would end up with 3/4 instead, and that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm simply going to get rid of my constant by subtracting 1 from both sides. 3/4 of $1, which would be 75 cents. Take away $1, or take away 1, is going to be a negative quarter. Okay, if you had 3/4 or 75 cents and somebody took away $1, you would owe 25 cents, or in fraction terms, -1/4. And that's it. That's all your questions. So hopefully you made some notes there on what mistakes you were making. And if you have any questions or concerns, please contact your teacher and ask them some questions. They're dying to answer your questions, and hopefully through this social quarantining and social distancing, we can still be able to teach and help you guys out. So remember, wash your hands, stay safe, and don't let your boomer parents drive you crazy.